Greetings, welcome back to Brown Girl Blue. My name is Tabitha, and on this channel, I talk about my childhood Jehovah's Witness memories. So, do you remember the first time that you thought there was a monster under your bed? You know that feeling where the power of the blanket could protect you from anything, and that you couldn't let any of your toes or fingers come underneath, otherwise, the monster may get them? Well, I think my parents introduced the monster under the bed to me, either knowingly or unknowingly. I remember hearing stories about demons at a very young age. And that was a common story that was told. I heard about it at the meetings at the Kingdom Hall. I definitely heard about it at home. And I just remember so many times just being terrified because of some of those religious discussions that my parents would have either with me or around me. When I think about the Bible studies that my parents would have, they used to have something that were called family Bible studies. And it's when families would come over, usually to our home. At least I remember that. A lot of people come over to our home one day a week. I think it was like Wednesday, maybe Tuesday. I don't remember the day, but it was a day during the week that wasn't the same night as the Theocratic Ministry School, which was held on Thursday evenings. But they would come over and they had different publications they were studying out of. And I remember this one publication, I was like, Babylon, something out of Babylon. I don't remember all the old texts. I mean, I could easily look it up online if I want to do that. But there was a text they were talking about false religion and, demonic encounters and, just seeing these different beasts that the book of Revelations would identify. And I remember Jehovah's Witnesses did not separate their children from the primary group meetings. You were exposed to the same information that your parents were. So there was a lot of heavy topics that were downright scary. And and they would just tell these stories of, bad things that, demons would do to people, and they would possess them or get inside them and make them do things they didn't want to do. And I just remember just being really scared. And at the time, we lived in a house with a basement, and basements are scary anyway on their own, without any of the extra with the extra stories to make them even scarier. So there were times when I would go down to our basement and I would be so scared because the basement lighting was not as bright as it was in the other part of the house. I'm like, our basements like that by design? I think they're better now, but in the 70s and the early 80s, basements were, I think, just scary to be scary. And so I would go down to the basement and I would always think that I would see things. And a lot of this came from the Bible lessons or Bible studies that my parents were having in our home as they were talking to other adults about some of these really intense topics. And going to bed, I would have nightmares just thinking about, demons in the wilderness and demons out and about walking around and demons everywhere. Or if you had a bad thought, it was a demon affecting you. And it was always this external reason for the actions that you chose to do. It was never things that you were doing of your own accord, whether it was good or bad. That you were always under the influence of some external force that was making you do this thing. And so my monster under the bed was definitely manufactured from my parents because they always talked more about demons than they did about God and angels. We were always under attack, and we always had to be on high alert because you never knew when, if someone came up to you, like what was it that made them come up to you? Was it by chance, or were they under some kind of evil influence that they were trying to somehow affect your life or make you do something really bad that was against Jehovah's will? And just to have that kind of constant fear, always being afraid of people and, always being mindful of, what you touch and what you accept from people and, being concerned about things you get from the store and the whole basis of thought was about focusing on things that were bad and focusing on demonic possessions and just focusing on all these bad negative things in the world. And I think when I think back, I think a lot of that was self prophecy, because they would talk about it so much that things would actually happen. My dad was a mechanic, and we always had car trouble, always car trouble. And I remember my mom said, "Oh, it's the devil. He's affecting our vehicle. He's not making our car start, or he's doing all these things." And as a child, you believe that. You're like, "Oh, I guess we are." She keeps saying that these things are happening, and then it happens, so they must be true. This is why this thing is happening, because my mom said that we got a tire that blew out, or something broke in the engine. It was all because of demons. Like some demon got in there and messed up our car, and always made us. My mom and dad always had to pay money to buy a part, because my dad was a mechanic, so he put the part in himself. But always, like, anything bad that happened, anything and everything. Whether it's the food burned, or something need repairs in the home, or some unexpected bill that came up. And they were always talking about all these negative things. And they would be in this loop. And then because something bad happened, that made it easier for the next bad thing to happen, because they were always expecting something bad to happen. And so I was I was raised in this culture where the expectation was always for some type of horrid emergency. They were always under pressure. We always had to worry about what could go wrong, and not much energy on what could go right or what should be going right. It was always expecting something negative. I remember when we get ready for the conventions, which you watch more of the videos, I talk about Joe Witnesses would go to circuit conventions and district conventions. District convention were usually, I think it was 4 to 5 days, and that was always during the summer months. And the circuit convention was a shorter event that was usually, I think, 2 or 3 days. And that was always in the fall and early winter months. And every time we went to one of these conventions, something always happened. But before it happened, I remember my mom and dad would always talk about, "Oh, we got to be careful. Because, this car is probably going to break down, or something's going to go wrong, or we're not going to have enough money to go," and they would always talk about the bad things. And when I think back in hindsight, that was the culture of the religion that we were in, where everyone was upping everyone else to see who could have a really bad experience, so they can have a better. So something else they would do is they would share their horrible experiences with each other. So they would, so they say if something bad has, "Well, we're going to the Kingdom Hall, or we're going to the convention, and the devil tried to stop us because the car caught on fire, or something broke, or a tire blew out, but we made it. We pushed through and we made it." And everyone would have a story about how tough it was to get to whatever that event was. It was this measure of faith, that the more trouble you had, the more negative circumstances you experienced, then the more faith that you had as a Jehovah's Witness. And when I look back in hindsight, when I think about how that whole, to be exposed to that and to have that behavior modeled for me, where I was taught not only to worry, but taught to always be afraid of everything, to live in fear, worrying about having bad dreams because of the intense conversations that the adults in my life were having around me, talking about demons and witchcraft and all kind of negative things that impact your life in a poor way, to get the results that you don't want, but because you talk about them so much that it actually happens, that it definitely becomes a self-prophesying event. Yeah, I was taught to worry. My mom did it. My dad did it. All the adults that my parents associated with, they did it. Everyone had a horrible experience, and they kept talking about it over and over and over again. And the experiences came true, and that made what they were saying even more effective. And so they would talk about it some more. And it was this vicious loop of talking about all the bad things and getting exactly what they were talking about. So, what have I learned from that? I learned that you ask, you get what you ask for. And so it took me some time to learn this lesson that when I worry about things, when I fixated on things that I don't want, because I'm always thinking about it, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. So now I have learned that, hey, if I think better thoughts, even though life will still happen, like certain things happen in life, but I notice when I have better thoughts about things, and when I actually think about what I want, and I focus on what I want, and I make sure what I'm focusing on is actually what I want and not focusing on what I don't want, when I have that perspective, things tend to go better for me. So that's what I learned from my parents, is how to create my own monsters under the bed. But from what life has taught me is, if that's what you really want, then yes, we will continue to give you those monsters under your bed. But hey, if you think something differently, then we'll give you that as well. So if you don't want monsters under your bed, then think of something else, and then that something else will appear. So that is what I learned from that, and as I pivoted from that I do now believe in the power of our thoughts, that what we think about, we definitely get. And my parents showed me that over and over and over and over again. So if you could please share with me, what are some of the things that you remember from your childhood, especially if you grew up in the Jehovah's Witness culture? Did you have parents who constantly worried about things, and it was like a badge of honor to have something challenging happen in their life? They could use that as an experience to show how faithful they are, and that because they were being persecuted, even though it may have been by their own design or their own self-sabotage, it was still something to talk about. Is that something that you experienced? If it is, please share. If what you're comfortable with, please share. Because I definitely experienced that. Growing up as a child in a Jehovah's Witness household, I was just being taught to worry about everything. And then when that thing came true, because they put so much attention on it, it just gave them further proof that it was true. And so it just kept going on and on and on and on and on. Even my mom got older, she was still doing it. She still does it. Even her, unfortunately now she has dementia. But before she got to the point to where she had trouble communicating, my mom always worried. She worried about every single thing. So that behavior continued. So that's another memory unlocked from my childhood experience growing up in the Jehovah's Witness religion. Thank you for joining me today on Brown Girl Blue. Until next time, I will see you then. Have a great time. See you soon. Bye.